Welcome to Marketplace Tech Bytes. It's our weekly roundup of some of the big stories in tech and maybe some you missed. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This week, a shakeup at X. CEO Linda Yaccarino is leaving the company. Plus, we'll dig into the SCOTUS decision on age verification online and what more tariffs could mean for the tech industry. I'm joined now by our regular contributor, Maria Curi, tech policy reporter at Axios. Hey, Maria, so good to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So we're going to start off, as we always do, with our Bite of the Week. This is a number that gives us some insight into the week in tech. Maria, what is your number this week?
My number this week is $5.69 per pound. That is the amount of copper prices after this 50% tariff increase on this material that was announced.
All right, well, we will get into that later in the show, but I first want to share my number, which is $44 billion, which is, of course, how much Elon Musk paid for Twitter, now X, back in 2022. And just this last May of 2025, investors during a funding round finally valued the company at that amount after years of its valuation being lower than what Musk paid. And of course, the executive who helped bring that value up, Linda Yaccarino, the CEO, announced her departure on Wednesday. Maria, what can you tell me about Yaccarino's tenure at X? How important was she?
She was pretty crucial for this goal to make Twitter, then X, this everything app, to have it be something that could be, for television, for payments. And she really helped shepherd the company to reach that goal. She was also the former head of advertising at NBC Universal. And so she really, took the company through a lot of fraught times with the ad industry during her tenure.
Right. It was kind of an adversarial relationship with advertisers, used legal tactics to kind of, break up some ad groups that were, telling their members not to advertise on X. Of course, she had to deal with Elon Musk's kind of mercurial relationship with both the press and with advertisers. At one point, I think he said that advertisers that didn't want to be on X could go bleep themselves.
That's right.
What did Linda Yaccarino do in terms of advertising? I still don't see a lot of advertising on X when I use it, but she kind of stabilized the situation, right?
She did stabilize the situation, especially as she was dealing with, Elon Musk's, comments. But this all really stemmed from the decision under Elon Musk's leadership to kind of stop moderating content as well. We've seen other platforms start to do that as well, like Meta, for example. But Linda Yaccarino always stuck by that and believed in that. This was a leadership team that really believed in free speech more than anything and not getting in the way of that with any content moderation. But of course, that is something that has also been troublesome for the company. And a few, right before Linda Yaccarino announced she was not going to be there, there was obviously all of this anti-Semitic rhetoric that was causing concern.
Yeah, we have to bring this in here. Big story, second big story of the week for X, which may or may not be relevant. We haven't gotten any confirmation that is one of the reasons for Yaccarino's departure. But yes, X chatbot Grok once again started spewing offensive anti-Semitic content from its private account. It praised Hitler, called itself Mecha Hitler. And this isn't really a one-off thing, right, Maria?
No, I think it falls in line with, leadership's decisions not to moderate content. The company said following this scandal, frankly, that they were going to assess the model and see what could be done so that this doesn't happen again. But at the same time, they are planning, this is very new, but they are planning to now release the Grok chatbot into Tesla cars. And so they are expanding. They're not planning to slow down, and we'll see if they're going to be able to kind of thwart this type of language and rhetoric.
All right, now we want to go back in time, actually, to a Supreme Court ruling that you've written about that we didn't have a chance to talk about when it came down. And that was SCOTUS's ruling that this Texas law requiring age verification for websites with obscene content does not violate the First Amendment. Why is this significant?
This is significant because it's the first time that the Supreme Court has really limited free speech. Usually, when the Supreme Court takes on tech cases, this argument of not infringing on free speech is always the winner. And this is the first time where we're going to see restrictions on a platform based on its content. So more than a third of obscene materials, you're going to have to show that you're at least 18 years old through a driver's license or through other documentation that can prove your age. And so this age verification debate is something that a lot of the big tech companies are paying close attention to because it could mean more restrictions on their own products.
Right. And of course, kind of the free speech concerns here were that by sort of putting up these gates ostensibly for minors, you're putting up those gates to everyone. You know, maybe not everyone can verify their age with a license, or, you know, there are concerns about using alternative methods like, you know, using biometric data, facial recognition, that kind of thing. But about half of states have passed something similar to this Texas law. I imagine this means those are going to go full steam ahead.
That's right. And so, you know, in addition to the free speech concerns, opponents have also raised concerns about privacy, about cybersecurity with uploading this documentation onto the internet. And so, yeah, we're seeing that a lot of different states across the country are adopting and implementing similar measures. They feel emboldened by the Supreme Court decision because now their laws and regulations are less likely to get struck down in lower courts. And we're seeing Congress itself at the federal level being, you know, encouraged to set a federal standard so that companies don't have to, you know, comply with a patchwork of regulations, the proverbial patchwork of regulations.
Some of these laws go even further than, you know, just obscene content, you know, pornographic content, to include potentially social media as sites that have obscene content. Where does that leave this discussion?
That's right. So this was a pretty, narrow thing that the Supreme Court looked at. But there are laws and bills across the country that would place the burden on the app stores themselves, where whenever you want to download an app, you have to, you know, show documentation. And so, of course, you have Apple and Google saying that is way too much data that we don't want to be collecting. We don't want to be responsible for all of that. But then on the other side of this, you have the Metas, the Snapchats, the X's of the world that are saying, instead of having us verify age, it should be at the app store level. They're framing it as a one-stop shop for this type of mechanism. And so we'll see where it plays out.
All right. And we can't let a week go without talking about tariffs. Earlier this week, during a cabinet meeting, President Donald Trump said he plans to add copper to his long list of tariffs. Here's what he said.
We did aluminum, 50%. Lumber just came out.
Why don't you announce copper?
And we did cars. And now, today we're doing copper.
Copper, what would that tariff be on? The section tariff?
I believe the tariff on copper, we're going to make it 50%.
50%.
So the U.S. imports a lot of its copper, mainly from Chile and South America and Canada. Maria, how could this affect the tech industry?
I mean, it affects most electronics that we use, iPhones, computers. But one really key way where it's going to impact the tech industry is in its data center rollouts. So copper is really important for data centers because it keeps them cool. It makes it more energy efficient. It makes things run more smoothly and faster. And so we know that that is a really big goal for the tech industry here and for the Trump administration to be able to build these data centers. It's all part of winning the race on AI. And these types of tariffs on these imports make it more expensive to do so. Now, the bigger players might be able to bear that cost, but it will shut out some of the smaller players. And overall, it will delay construction.
Yeah, and this is just kind of the latest blow for data centers. There have already been a number of tariffs, as Trump noted, on materials that are used in construction, general construction that also applies to data centers. We've got the pullback on green energy incentives in the One Big Beautiful Bill that was just adopted. I mean, this just seems like a whole number of factors that could slow down data centers.
Yeah, steel, aluminum, copper. This week, it was also re-up that semiconductor tariffs could come at the end of the month. It's all part of this philosophy of the Trump administration that all of this production should be onshored and done in the United States. But critics say that the US can't bring these entire productions back domestically, these production lines back domestically. It would be too expensive. It would take too long for these goals that are, pretty urgent. And so the tech industry is feeling it on various sides right now.
Right. And it seems in tension with, some other kinds of initiatives that Trump has climbed on, like the, initiative with Sam Altman to build out, billions of dollars in data centers, which kind of Trump hosted this announcement at the White House as one of his first days in office. It seems kind of contradictory.
Right, exactly. And it is also contradictory to the big, beautiful bill that just passed, which included a tax incentive for semiconductor production in the United States. Companies could benefit from that tax incentive, but that doesn't get rid of the immediate demand for all of these materials that are needed from other countries right now.
All right, Maria Curi at Axios, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks to all of you for joining us for Marketplace Tech Bytes Week in Review. Jesus Alvarado produced this episode. I'm Meghan McCarty Carino. This is APM.